I'm Kevin Cordi, that crazy practitioner of play. We're going to give ourselves permission to play and have fun with debuts. So I'd like to introduce the legendary Jeff Gere. He begins his tale.
Aloha. I'd like to take you from wherever you are at this moment to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, to the archipelago, the pearl strand of islands known as Hawaii, my home. To the very southern island, the big island, the biggest island, the newest island, the island of Hawaii. That island is dominated by two volcanic mountains, Mauna Kea, the white one because it has snow, and Mauna Loa, the long one. Now, midway on one side of that Mauna Loa, the long mountain, there is a crater, a volcanic crater. In the middle of that is a pit that still spews red hot lava from the center of the earth. The name of the big crater is Kilauea. The name of the little hot ember is Hale Mau Mau. That is the home of the goddess of the volcano Pele. And this story is about her. But the story does not begin up on the crater on the side of Mauna Loa. No, in this story, Pele is going down, down, down with her 7 sisters to the shore in a place called Puna, and Kea'au is the name of the beach. And there, Pele and her sister Hi'iaka, the youngest of the 7, sat on the beach and watched the waves roll in, appreciated the surfing bodies of the sisters out on the sea, watched them in the swells that came in and went out and came in and went out. The sun was hot, so they were under the shade of the hala tree. They sat with each other close and whispered gossip back and forth about the sisters as they paraded and cavorted in the sea. It's quite inexplicable, but I need to nap. It's never happened, but all of a sudden I'm compelled. There must be some reason not revealed yet. I must sleep and you must watch me. Make sure you don't wake me. I'm going to sleep now. And Pele began to float as a dream body above herself. As a dream body, she floated up above herself. As she dreamed, she said she heard a drumming, chanting. There was chanting and joy. She said, I will follow the wind and find the source of this joy and this happiness. I hear love in that tune. And she rode the wind and came down in Hilo. No further. She went northward along the windward side of the big island. Not there, farther still. She jumped across and landed in Hana on the coast of Maui. That's where Oprah Winfrey has a bunch of land. She went up the coast, the windward side, all the way up. No. And jumped across to Oahu, to Makapu'u, the Hill of Eyes. Then she jumped to Kualoa. That's where they shoot Jurassic Park. Then she came to Kaena Point, which jumped across again, coming to Kauai. She went up into the sky. She listened to the sound. She followed her belly. She finally came down on the very northern edge of the island of Kauai, a place called Haena. It was already sunset. She could see the long house, and inside of it, she could see that there were an assembly of chiefs with their kahili designating their rank and position. She could see that they were all entranced by the dancer. There was a drummer, but the dancer was handsome and sweating and muscular, and he moved with the grace of the wind, and he was calling forth things in a fluent tongue, and everyone loved his narration. They were entranced. Outside, there were the commoners mingling as people do. Pele separated. She wrapped herself in her most alluring, buxom, beautiful self. Fecund, beautiful, ample, wide hips, a promising valley. She was a sight to behold. She had garlands, and they all exuded a fragrance, so that as she moved from the darkness towards the light of the dancing hale, the house, The perfume exuded from her and announced her presence. The commoners smelled her, turned to see her. Stunning. They all parted ways, and she came, in fact, into the light and paused in front of the hale, the house, waiting to be admitted and noticed. All the chiefs were engrossed in the dancing of Lohiau, the powerful body sweating and moving, all things flowing, until from his end of the room, he looked across the room and was struck with a vision and a scent. The olfactory nerve reported something spectacular of ohelu berry, of the avapuhi fern, of the hala. All these fragrances moved together to intoxicate him. His eyes grew wide, his mouth ran slack, his dancing froze, his hands fell down, the drumming stopped, and all were enveloped in the smell of the special woman who had entered from Puna. The whole room fell silent as all heads yanked towards the source of the scent, and they beheld a woman of such stature and beauty that in one accord, in one breath, they all went, "Ha!" The birds in the trees stopped singing. The whole world resolved to pause. And in that pause, there was peace on earth. Oh, what an entrance! Please come, aloha, welcome into the hale. We are glad to see you. Who are you and where do you come from? She came into the hall. She pretended to be looking for a place to sit. And she exhibited all angles and aspects of her beneficent, beautiful, buxom, delicious, and voluptuous form. She sat on a pile of mats removed from the others so that they could still take in the gorgeous countenance of Pele in bloom. Again, the silence. Again, Lohiau. Whoa! Well, again, who are you and how do you come here? I'm a native of this island. No. If you were a native of this island, I would know you. We would all know you. No, really, where do you come from? I do not mean to puzzle you. I am native to this island and the islands farther and covered by the sea, but also those to the south. In fact, to answer your question directly, I come from Puna. Puna! Oh, the land where the ava grows wild, the land where the avapuhi grows, the ferns, and the delectable grove of hala. Yes, your fragrances are intoxicating to the noses of us here in Haena. I am infatuated with your scent. So you must be hungry. You've come so far. I call for the feast to come. Bring us food. The food was brought, but Pele said no. I ate before I came. And by the way, your dancing is the sustenance which sustains me. No, really, from so far away, you must be hungry. No, but you go ahead and eat. I will have the pleasure of eating among you. So they all ate. But Lohiau, as he ate, had eyes only for her. And as he tasted the food, he developed a taste for other delicacies. And she, looking in his eyes, understood. Until he was finished, and she said, "Speak your heart's desire." And he said, "I would desire that you come to me and live with me in my hale. I would like you to be my wife. In my house, there is all things we need, from the uplands, the lowlands, from the oceans as well. Be with me in my house." The name of it is Halau Aola. Well named it is, the Temple of Happiness. I will find happiness there. I consent. What is the harm? Let us go together. Lohiau dismissed the assembly, walked out of the house. She followed behind, and soon they were in the Halau Aola. And they came together as husband and wife, knowing each other as husband and wife do, without ceasing, without stopping, without resting, without eating, without sleeping, for 3 days and 3 nights. For 3 days and 3 nights, he lay surrounded by the scent of the ohelu berry. For 3 days and 3 nights, he sipped from the spring of upwelling water, laced by the delicate fern. For 3 days and night in that pool did he swim as a small fish among the petals of joy. For 3 days and 3 nights without ceasing, he tasted the juice of the young coconut. For 3 days and 3 nights, he surfed the waves of her being. It rose up and down. It swirled around. He rode on the crest. He was crashed in the underbrush. It crossed him and destroyed him. And then he came up again. For 3 days and 3 nights without ceasing, they were together. And after 3 days and 3 nights, Lohiau was tired. I am famished. Let us pause, my love. I need to go back to the longhouse. I need food, and the chiefs are assembling to eat. She said, you are amazing. I thought everything that we needed was here. But never mind. You may satisfy yet another desire. And they walked back to the longhouse. Well, Lohiau was hungry. While she stood back and exuded the beauty of her position and the countenance of a woman who knew her power. As Lohiau feasted, she came close to him. She said, Lohiau, I need you to pay attention. There are 2 women coming. They look like women, but they are mo'o, supernatural lizards from the cliffs of Ke'e. Don't let them defile the loving bond we have created. They will tempt you. Do not be tempted. Do not act. You and I have become husband and wife. It is sacred. If you defile this sacred act, it will be as if our coupling is made by dogs. Are you a dog? No, you are a man. You are my man. I set you aside. I put a precinct and a wall around you. I call you as my own, and I will not share you with another. Do not allow it to happen. I place my kai okia, my sacred edict upon you now. You are mine, and mine alone. Do not trespass that boundary with another woman, or you invite death upon yourself. Nod your head so that I know you understand me. There can be no misunderstanding here. Do you hear me? Continue. And as she walked away, he said, who is this woman? She eats not, she loves me, and then this. Well, of course, she was right. 2 women did come in, and they had eyes only for him. They sat on either side of him, very close. They were served food. They toyed with it. They brushed their hair. They batted their eyes. They did those things that excite men that women know so well. And oh, it did work. And through his veins coursed his lust, and it came up into his throat so that he could even taste his desire. But he remembered the edict of the kai okia. And so he held his hands to himself and let the fish, so quick, so glinting, pass before him without touching. Then he jumped up and he was dancing again. And after that, he called, I call on my wife. I recognize our companionship. She is my love. I hear that she has a chant of her own to share with us. Would we not like to hear it? Please come. Please come. And for the first time, the 2 women, mo'o, the women saw Pele, and their hair stood up and it began to itch on the back of their head. Who is she? She said, I would love to perform for the group, but I will not do it with a drum. I will not do it with a dance. It will be an oli, an unaccompanied chant. And I will call forth the winds of this land For I call on Laka, who keeps the winds in a calabash and lets them out. Let them out, Laka. Let us all enjoy the winds of the islands which are buried under the sea. And that's a whole page of chanting. And I will call now on Nihoa, the one island which peers up from that ancient place. And that's another page. And then I will call on the winds of Niihau. That's another page. And then she goes, I will begin with Kauai. One of the mo'o said, who does she think she is? If she can call on the names of the winds of Kauai, then we are all foreigners and she is native. And she started in the west, started Polihale, and there was a whole page of winds that she called forth. And she moved to Waimea, then to Hanapepe, moving to Lihue, round to Kapa'a. Then she started saying, said, now I come to Anahola and Wainihi, now from Naue down to Hanalei. And the winds were going down and the winds were swimming swell. And there are many winds. This is not a simple thing, and you must not leave, my chiefs. You are bound by sacred positions to stay until the end of this chant, for this day of brightness will turn dark. A stormy day is coming. And the woman said, a storm? The only storm I see is her tongue and her bragging. And then she started to call on the winds of these places. And as she moved farther north, the ocean began to broil. The ocean was not happy in its bed. It began to throw up the reef onto the shore, and the waves grew like mountains and pounded onto the reef and tore away at the shore. The oceans were in anger. Fish were being tossed up. Back in the valleys, the torrents of water were being raged down so that the cliffs were bleeding water. The rivers were overflowing their banks, and overhead, the day became night. Flashes of lightning and thunder. The rain was reaching now under the hale of the house. Everything was quaking under the reaching and the pouring and the raging of the waters and the sea. In it all, Pele said, and now I will call upon the winds of Hawaiian. And there are two that are foul among us, and they are the cliffs of Ke and the mo'o that live there, the women that are ugly and poor, terrible and wish us only harm. And the two women, hearing that, their hair bristled out, their eyes turned green, and their tongues came out. How dare this bitch to insult us? She comes here wishing to fulfill her desire. There is no lover for you here, and the only foul winds that come to Haena are coming from you, and the name is Kilauea. You are the foul wind. Too late. She'd already chanted the two names of those places in the winds, and the women exploded and were gone in a flash, and the elite chiefs were sitting shivering at what they had seen, but too late, for the wind was finishing off the top of the roof. The rain came down. They were drenched to the bone. The end of the chant meant they all could become with their attendants, trying to rush for higher land, hoping and praying that they would survive the storm. What a storm! What a gale! Everything was destroyed. And in the arms of Lohiau and the higher ground, he protecting her from that rain, she whispered in his ear, the time has come, my love. Now I must leave you. Do not try to hold me. I will not allow it. I will go now back to Puna, but I am in love with you. I am your wife and you are my husband. I will not forget. I will send one of my sisters to fetch you and bring you to me. It shall happen soon. Prepare yourself. Remember my kai okia. Do not trespass, but I must go. And they put their heads together, they embraced, their tears mingled. They put their noses together in the Polynesian style and inhaled each their last scent of the other. They said words of love and tenderness, and then she was gone. And the big storm clouds of darkness were gone, and the ocean lay at rest. And the stones of the streams revealed themselves, and the blossoms came back to the plants and began to bloom again. The world was refreshed and went on, but Lohiau was collapsing, weeping on the ground. So ends the story I have for you today, the story of Pele meeting Lohiau and they becoming husband and wife.
Woo!
It's an epic.
uh, Wow. While I'm thinking, Jeff, give them a little background on the tale that you've already given me.
Well, it's a prehistory, thousands of year old epic tale before contact, before the introduced species. All those names of those plants were here before the Polynesians started cavorting back and forth with southern Polynesia. First, the missionaries developed an alphabet because they had nothing written down. It was all oral. And then they had an alphabet, and the King Kamehameha III said, "I'd like my people to read." And so it became, in one generation, one of the most literate cultures in the world at that time, through the 1800s, mid 1800s to the early 1900s. There was a journal, 7 daily all Hawaiian newspapers existed, which were microfilmed. When the bloom of Hawaiian pride in the 70s bloomed, scholars started to learn the language again, which was saved just to the edge of extinction, and now it's flourishing. They began to look through those old microfilms of those early newspapers, and they found a journal of this epic tale, which they translated, and it was printed in 2006. It won all the awards, and it was a 400 pages in English of the IAKAIKAPOLIOPELE epic, of which I've just told you the first inciting incident, which takes about 30 pages. It's a minefield of appropriation and white man telling brown world. But at Thanksgiving, as I was sharing with you, I was talking to a fairly renowned journalist who was at the dinner, and she heard me, blabbering on. She just said, "Just tell the story. We'd love to hear it." And I kind of take that as, I'm just going to tell the story. It's so big and it's so important, and nobody's telling it, not at least not to English speaking people. In the hula halaus, they perform bits of it, but they don't share it with me, and they don't do it as a continual piece. It's too big. So I figure that I'll do the hard work of plotting it out section by section, choose the highlights that I want to dwell in, and then go through the whole mapping of it, which I imagine would be a 2 or 3 hour show, and then perform it as a workshop for Hawaiians, and then see if I can find a few that can mentor me and deepen my understanding. Kind of like you're doing, Kevin. Not that I'm going to become Hawaiian. I've toured with many Hawaiians, and I'm not going to be that. But to just be, grist for the mill and insightfulness, and to be more reverent and referential, and just to learn more about the story.